This is Co-op HD1 HD3 Hornsby, radio for people, not for profit. Welcome to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Each week, we explore how your library is more than books. The library is knowledge, technology, and inspiration for our community. Hello and welcome to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. We bring the library to you. I'm Kanya Lyons.
And I'm Mike Wheat. That's right, every Wednesday at 2:30 now in the afternoon, right here on Co-op Radio.
Yep, this is our second week in the new time slot, and we are thrilled to reach a wider audience. Today we're going to have a conversation with reference and collection development librarian Betsy Blanche about the Graphic Novel Book Club. And then later in the show, we're going to have a little chit-chat with Mary Pulowski about her experience as a graphic design intern, a communications volunteer, and a social media manager. So
let's start with Betsy. Hi, Betsy. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, it is.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So give us a little bit about your background. Where are you from?
I am from the Sunflower State, which is Kansas. It's a delightful state from Leavenworth, actually, from the outside of the penitentiary, not from the inside. That was your follow-up question.
That's good for all of us.
I do get that a lot. Yeah. Awesome. And I came to Austin for grad school almost a decade ago.
Wow.
And were you in library school?
Library science. Mm-hmm. Thought it'd be just a quick in and out stay in Texas, but here I am.
Austin sucked you in, didn't it?
It did. It put its claws in me, just like it does.
So what inspired you to become a librarian in the first place?
Some of the stereotypical reasons, and some not so stereotypical reasons.
You like books?
I like books.
Oh, good.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like to organize things to kind of a weird extent.
Nice.
But I also really like interacting with people. And the college I went to, Grinnell College, shout out Pioneers, has a strong emphasis on social justice. And there's kind of no better place for social justice as a career than public libraries,
True that.
Yes.
So everyone is welcome. It doesn't matter if you make six figures or if you're unemployed. It doesn't matter if you're 80 or you're 8 years old. It's kind of a level playing field for everyone. I think that's a really neat thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of people that aren't familiar with the library don't know about intellectual freedom, which is another thing that I think is super awesome about the library. And that is, you want to talk for a second? Intellectual freedom just means that you have the right to read whatever you want, and the library will provide the books that people want to read.
Yeah, we don't discriminate.
And we don't track what people read.
Right.
All the records get wiped right away.
It's a judgment-free zone. Yeah. And there's a lot of, it's a big spectrum in our collection, which is really cool. And in the graphic novels, which we'll talk about, is a huge spectrum of things. So.
And then in your role, you are a reference librarian at the Central Library. Mm-hmm. Do you have any fine-tuned, specific subject matter that you are a master of as far as research?
Well, we're all generalists, so we kind of just take the questions we get. We have collection specialties, so I manage our medicine collection. So I do kind of try to focus in on our medical databases, which we have great medical databases, and that collection of books, which is diet and exercise, as well as 101 things to know about cancer treatment. So kind of the spectrum of serious to more fun, yoga books.
Yeah, I've actually utilized that collection for my health stuff, and it's really robust. There's a lot there, and a lot of different topics. So
610 or 619, check it out.
What are those numbers you just did?
All numbers.
That's the Dewey Decimal number. That's that decade.
That's still in effect? Yeah.
It is.
So go ahead and describe what is an average day for you.
Ooh, I know. People ask us this all the time, and there isn't
an average day.
Which is also one of the things that's so great about our job. We spend a few hours every day interacting with people, which I think, I don't know, somehow gets forgotten. You'd be surprised how many people say, oh, you're a librarian, it must be great to read all day.
Yeah.
Which I would be so bad at my job if I just sat at my desk and read all day.
It's you must not visit libraries very often.
Yeah. And no shame to the people who ask that question. That is fair. I will also not be rude to you. But, we do interact with people. We help them with computer questions. We help them write resumes and apply for jobs. We look up phone numbers. There are a lot of people who don't have computer access, don't feel comfortable using the internet. So we still do that level of,
Right. And when you're
I
not
can Google
dealing
this, and that's fine.
and when you're not dealing with the public, you're back in your offices working on future program ideas or researching databases to provide for specific needs.
Making information guides. So we've got this great set of homemade information guides on different topics. We work on the collection to make sure it fits. It's a kind of broad
Accessibility.
range of things.
So if you're just joining us, we are having a conversation today with Betsy Blanche, and she's a reference librarian at the Fox Central Library. And real soon, we're going to start talking about the graphic novel book club. Speaking of graphic novels, can you tell us a little bit about kind of the spectrum of the different types of graphic novels that are out there?
Yeah, I think this is another sort of surprising element of what the library has to offer. Is people hear graphic novels or comic books and they think of a pretty small segment of what that is. So comic strips, like we do have Calvin and Hobbes, sure, and that's a classic. And people think of the superhero books, but it's this really fascinating, broad genre that kind of bends the rules a lot. So for our book club, we've read a lot of the kind of classic superhero things and then sort of unconventional superhero things, but there's a lot of memoirs, like a lot of really fascinating memoirs about people's lives or people encountering illness, people dealing with family things or coming out, and then this just straight up nonfiction in graphic novel form. And then what I really like is these kind of weird magical realism takes on nonfiction, right? There's this great book. It's called The Adventures of Lovelace and Babbage. It's about the first computer ever made.
Oh.
And there's also these parts where Lovelace and Babbage enter the computer and they're in this crazy world and they interact with famous people in history, but they also
That didn't really
So they're
happen in
inside the
physical
computer
world,
like
but-
Tron?
Yeah,
Trying to visualize, I'm sorry.
Except the computer is all a sort of complicated, just cogs and mathematical equations being run through this lever system.
Like a real computer, not like an 80s
real
vision of a
computer.
computer.
Yeah,
Might just have to read the book.
read the book. Yeah, I'm not doing it justice. But.
Excellent.
So memoirs and all that's definitely what grabbed my attention with graphic novels. Because again, I grew up thinking comic books mostly, and novels. I like to read, but when you're sitting there looking at a page, and I am a man about visuals, art is what I do for a living. But when you're looking at a whole page of words, you think of your time investment, and you can quick just I don't have time to read this book and forget about it. But with graphic novel, it's a great way to get in there, and not only do you have the words to read, but you have all these images. If it's done well, that have lots of clues and little hidden innuendos where you're reading. The texture of the thing as well.
And that's it's a more flexible for audiences than you'd expect to, because there are people who basically don't look at the art and only read the words, and there are people who kind of do the opposite. So,
yeah. And there are some of them where there are no words. There's no dialogue at all. It's a
There are.
series of really amazing illustrated panels, and really you have to stick to it panel by panel to really get the full story, and it's amazing at the end.
It is, yeah. And there are some with too many notes.
Yeah.
Footnotes and endnotes in a graphic novel I'm kind of over, but there's a lot of those too.
My favorite thing about graphic novels is when they kind of play with the medium itself and you see a character exit the frame or do weird stuff like that. It's so cool. Well,
All right, well, you are listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, and we're about to listen to a couple of brief announcements from our KOP underwriters. Then, reference librarian Blair Parsons will give us a taste of some upcoming community events at the Austin Public Library. After those announcements, we'll continue our discussion with the library's graphic novel book club with Betsy Blanche, reference librarian extraordinaire.
Support comes from East Side Pies, local pizza with local ingredients. 3 locations around Austin: East Side off Rosewood, Airport and 53rd, and Anderson Lane. Take out or eat in. Online ordering now available at eastsidepies.com.
You're listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on Co-op 91.7 FM and KOOP.org. Radio for people, not for profit.
My name is Blair Parsons, and I'm a reference librarian at the Fox Central Library. Each week, I highlight a few programs for adults happening around the Austin Public Library. Our full list of programs may be found on the library's events calendar. Thursday night, June 15th, the Yarborough Branch Library will host Board with Books, a monthly gathering of board game enthusiasts. Modern and traditional board games will be available, and participants are invited to bring a personal favorite. Board with Books meets the third Thursday of each month. The next meeting is Thursday, June 15th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Yarborough Branch Library. Friday night, June 16th, the Menchaca Road Branch Library will host Adult Hoppy Hour. Local group Tiny Tales to You will bring 25 cute animals to the library for a petting zoo, and artist Rita Wang will teach a clay cacti craft. The event is for folks 18 or older. Adult Hoppy Hour will be at the Menchaca Road Branch Library, Friday, June 16th, from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m.
This is
My name is
Volumes,
Blair Parsons, and I'm a...
the Austin Public Library radio show. We just listened to reference librarian Blair Parsons telling us about the adult events that are happening in the coming week at the Austin Public Library. The complete calendar of events is available at library.austintexas.gov.
That's correct. And for those of you just now joining us, again, this is Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on KOP 91.7 FM and also streaming at koop.org. Right now, let's get back talking with Betsy Blanche, reference and collection development librarian, and her experience with the Graphic Novel Book Club. So we left off talking, just getting started on it, but how did the book club get started? What's the origin story here?
Someone else did it, but I kept it alive. I've officially been doing it longer now. So, January of 2009, we started
when you
Graphic
took it
Novel
over?
Book Club. No, I started in November of 2011.
Okay.
So still, it's a good solid 5.5 years.
It's a long run.
But Bonnie Brzezowski was a reference librarian with us before, and she
remember her.
did a lot of great work with our graphic novel collection, and she got the book club started. And we still have a member that came to the very first book club meeting in January of 2009 who still comes
cool
every
is
month.
that?
Yeah.
So this is the one that you run, which is at Joe's Coffee Shop on 2nd?
It will be back there. We were meeting one last time at the Hideout Coffee Shop.
That's right.
We moved briefly because Joe's didn't have evening hours, but we're heading back to Joe's on 2nd. So not the one on South Congress, but downtown. So I took it over when Bonnie moved to Oregon, and we've been going strong ever since. And next week, we have a meeting on Wednesday, and we'll be reading the 100th book for Graphic Novel Book Club.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's not
That
our
is a big
100th
deal.
meeting because we double up some and we've
Yeah.
skipped a couple months. But yeah, 100th book next month.
Impressive.
What is the book?
It is The Inkle by Jodorowsky
Nice.
Alejandro.
Probably a little late to get into it now, huh, and make the meeting.
No, there are copies available last time I checked. So,
Good.
It's big, but there are a lot of pictures.
But it's a
obviously.
picture book, yeah.
So cool. So you said that one of the first attending members is still with your group. Can you talk a little bit about sort of like the different types of people that come to the Graphic Novel Book Club?
Sure. We have a pretty steady crew, and then some people kind of drop in and out as they can. But what I really like about the collection of people is that they sort of jokingly are at odds about what they like best, right?
Nice.
Like, we have another employee of the library who comes regularly, and he just cannot do the comic books. Like, he can't do superheroes, but
Yeah.
he'll do it because he's a good sport, and he knows that eventually we'll read another memoir or nonfiction book, and he'll be into that. And other people are the opposite. But it's a nice compliment. Like, everyone has their own reading interests. And I've learned so much from this group because I came to the book club pretty new to the genre. Very new. It was my first book. The first graphic novel I read was for Graphic Novel Book Club.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've read a lot since. I've filled in those gaps. But just kind of the breadth and depth of their knowledge has been super fun. And everyone learns something every week. And so it's been a really great experience. But yeah, it is, open to anyone. So it's a fairly diverse group that kind of changes size each week. But
Yeah.
we got some
So
steady.
yeah, there is not an age requirement, but I mean,
Correct.
we do want to make sure people know these are adult-oriented graphic novels.
Right.
Sometimes they can be a little
Right.
racy in language and images.
So it's
Correct.
geared towards 18 and up.
It's geared towards that, but we're open-minded, and we do meet we meet outside of the library at a coffee shop where there's also beer. So it's
It's a fun
It's
environment.
a real place in the real world.
Right.
And this was such a popular thing that there's actually a spin-off. There's another graphic novel book club happening up
is.
north now at the North Village branch, and that's the first Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. But the one we're talking about right now is at Joe's Coffee Shop the third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. and that's where there's beer.
That's where there's beer.
And it's the OG group.
Yes. But, depending on where you live, I definitely recommend,
And so, yeah, between the two locations, you have two completely different lists. So you could hit both and not really be talking about the same thing.
True. Or if you missed one, you can hit up the other one because sometimes they will kind of hit it different times,
Yeah.
right? So,
And you were saying that, like, a lot of people, you have the one guy that comes even if he doesn't like the comic book style or whatever. But I mean, there was a time I didn't know I would like graphic novels at all if I hadn't sat down and read it. And I started with the memoirs. And now I'm getting to a point where I am enjoying more the sci-fi type. And it's just, go in and see what's out there and enjoy it.
It's a low bar of entry. Check out one book, see if you like it. There is no test to be seated at the table. You can just come and show up. Even if you haven't finished the book, that happens a lot. Sometimes it's just a slog, even though it is a picture book. And so it's just kind of fun to sit with people and talk about it.
Yeah.
So-
And then you can look at the styles too, that there's so many varying styles, whereas when you look at superhero comic books, that's a pretty hard sketch style. I mean, they've got Bibles on what you're supposed to draw like.
Right.
When it comes to these adult graphic novels on various subjects, the artists are free to do what they want. There's a lot of independent releases. So it's just as much fun to read the story as it is to look at the varying styles.
Right. Yeah, and we make a real effort to try to get a diverse set of authors. It can be sometimes hard to find enough women authors and illustrators, but I always make sure that I put extra on the voting list so that we make sure that we're getting sort of a lot of voices represented.
That's really cool. So in your time doing this, have you learned like what makes for a really great discussion and what makes for a not so great discussion?
Yes, and I have been sort of surprised by that. One of the biggest groups we had attendance-wise was for Brian K. Vaughan's Saga, and everyone loved it, and that was the worst. Like,
Oh no.
because you can only say so many nice things about a book, right? And then it's like, yeah,
Everybody's
what
just
else I
nodding
really
and
liked?
agreeing.
I like that character a lot too. And
too.
the art. And so you're just like,
Somebody
well,
argue with me.
so next month we're going to do something else. But then, then the flip side is books that we have universally hated have been like very fiery. We read this book called The Garden. Sorry to throw that author under the bus, but it was just so bizarre, and we still talk about it. We still reference like, oh, but at least it's better than The Garden. I don't know. Do you think this is worse than The Garden? It's just like on our list forever.
Yeah, at least he finished a book and got it published.
That's right. And translated in other languages.
There you go.
Like, who am I to say? But,
There's always an audience for everybody.
right. Every book gets reader. It's one of the 5 laws of libraries.
That's right.
That's really great. For those of you just joining us, we are talking to Betsy Blanche about the Graphic Novel Book Club, and we are just about out of time. So I was just wondering, is there last thing you would like to say to people about the Graphic Novel Book Club?
Well, I would like to thank Mike for our awesome artwork.
Oh, you're welcome.
If you see the Graphic Novel Book Club logo, it's a super cool painting that Mike did.
Yeah, and you guys actually, it was inspired by a graphic novel artist. Like I said, there was a time where I saw the different styles and said, hey, this is not so hard after all. And Jeff Lemire is a great illustrator. He's got a very loose brush style, and that was the inspiration for this old man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the show isn't over yet. Next, we're going to visit with Mary Pulowski. But first, if there are any parents looking for fun things to do with their kids, youth librarians Ann Minner and Michael Harley are going to tell us what the Austin Public Library is planning for this summer for children and teens. And thanks a lot, Betsy, for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Ann Minner, youth librarian at the Old Quarry Branch. I get to highlight a few Austin Public Library events happening for children this summer. Our dual language story times are created for all ages and feature books, rhymes, and stories in both English and Spanish. They differ from a traditional bilingual story time in that some material is presented in English while other material is presented in Spanish, allowing for a natural transition between stories and activities and exposing children to both languages. This coming week and through July, our talented staff are offering dual language story times in the following branches. Thursdays at the Little Walnut branch at 11 a.m., Fridays at the Pleasant Hill branch at 10:15 a.m., and at the Southeast branch at 10:15 a.m. Saturdays at the Ruiz branch at 11 a.m., Tuesdays at the Cepeda branch at 11 a.m., and Wednesdays at the Southeast branch at 10:15 a.m. and at the Terrazas branch at 10:30 a.m. Details about the Storytime schedule that continues through July are at library.austintexas.gov/storytimes.
Hey there, Austin. This is Teen Program Specialist Michael Harley from the Downtown Falk Central Library, and I can't wait to tell you about our next program coming up in our That's So Fandom Teen Summer Reading Series. I might be a little biased. Ever wondered how an animated character gets their voice? Professional voice actress Monica Rial, who's worked for Funimation and even voiced the biggest little cat from Japan, Hello Kitty, will join us by video call to share the inside scoop on the voiceover industry and voiceover techniques. Afterwards, participants will get to step behind the mic with me to lay down their own demo track to take home. The voiceover workshop will take place on Saturday, June 17th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for ages 13 to 17. To ensure participants have enough time for recordings, this event is limited to the first 20 participants. If you're more of a visual artist than a voiceover artist, the Shaping Spaces workshops have returned, with special teen events covering various art mediums and techniques. All supplies will be provided, and no registration is required. Shaping Spaces will take place at the Twin Oaks branch on Thursday, June 15th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. If you'd rather pick up a controller than a paintbrush, players will be smashing their way through the Super Smash Bros. Tournament on the way to the championship final. This week, players of all ages can try their luck at the North Village branch on Friday, June 16th at 2 p.m., the Little Walnut Creek branch on Saturday, June 17th at 1:30 p.m., and the Windsor Park branch on Wednesday, June 21st at 2 p.m. Sign-up begins 30 minutes prior to start time. The first 32 sign-ups are guaranteed a spot to play. And finally, if you're looking to boost the numbers on your summer reading logs, 2 teen book clubs are taking place this week. Teens can meet up with fellow readers to discuss Melina Marchetta's Prince Award-winning Jellicoe Road at the Spicewood Springs branch on Thursday, June 15th at 6:30 p.m., or Harper Lee's Pulitzer Prize-winning classic To Kill a Mockingbird at the Housen branch on Tuesday, June 20th at 6:30 p.m. More details for these and additional library programs can be found at library.austintexas.gov/events.
The Texas Talking Book Program provides digital audio, large print, and braille books and magazines to Texans who cannot read standard print due to qualifying visual, physical, or reading disabilities. Reader advisors are on hand to help navigate patrons through thousands of titles available for download to our free digital audio player. To see if you qualify or for more information, visit www.texastalkingbooks.org.
This is Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, and our next guest is Mary Pulowski from Recycled Reads, which is the Austin Public Library bookstore. Welcome.
Mary.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Howdy, girl.
Thanks for coming on the show. We're happy.
Yeah. So Mary started out with us in our department, mine and Kanya's, the Office of Programs and Partnerships, as an intern, graphic designer.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I was still a student at Austin Community College and had the opportunity to work at the Austin Public Library, my dream.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw your portfolio and was like, yes, immediately, come help us.
Yeah, so what gravitated you towards the library in the first place? Like, what drew you into the library?
Well, also, as Betsy was saying, she's from Kansas. I'm also from Kansas.
Woo-hoo!
So while I lived there, I worked at 2 public libraries, and I've always had a love for books. And as I traveled down to Austin, Texas, I figured, let's see if I can still stay with the public library. And I did, and I got lucky.
Yeah. So what brought you to Austin?
My husband,
Story
who
about a
at
boy.
the time was just my boyfriend, but he's now my husband.
Well, good. I'm glad that worked out.
So true love brought you to Austin?
Yes.
Aw. So y'all knew each other from Kansas?
Oh, yeah. We go way back.
Aw.
Yeah. So you're both media artists. He does gaming design,
He
right?
does animation.
Yeah. So does that influence you a little bit going to graphic design, or were you already?
Not at all.
No, man. I'm my own
Nope,
thinker.
I had my own thing going.
Nice. Yeah. So you were with us in our department for a while, and of course that program had ended. You were on an intern program as long as you were in school. When that ended, you stayed with us as a volunteer.
I did. It was in November, and I just figured, hey, why don't I just stay and help out, learn some more, add to my resume, and that's what I did. And in doing that, I got another job, which is at now Recycled Reads, the
To which we
bookstore.
were totally grateful for you for sticking around, and then sad to see you leave, but happy for you to getting a permanent spot at Recycled Reads, where now you get to run the social media.
That's
for them.
right. I still do some graphic design, so I still get to use my degree every now and again.
Yeah.
But mainly it's just staying up to date with all the things that are on social media.
Well, you're killing
for the
it on social
library.
media. I love all your posts.
And I'm curious to know, like, when you worked as an intern and as a volunteer, like, did you feel like you were able to kind of hone your skills as a designer and as a communications person, or was it like you already came to the table with the skills and you were just like getting to show them off?
I had none of the skills. I feel like I really learned what I know now from the Austin Public Library.
Oh, great.
And as I continue to go forward, I'm just going to learn more.
Well, I'm sure you know enough to know that the environmental library is a little bit different than you'd experience at, say, an agency.
Yeah.
And our audiences, we don't have one specific audience. You know, we've got the wide range of everybody on this planet, the whole populace. And so it was an immediate challenge for you to step in and find that versatility, but you did great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've just, working with social media and MailChimp and all the things that you did as a communications volunteer, it kind of led right into Recycled Reads and what you do there now. So you're not only managing the social media, but you are also like planning programming and working with the books and things like that, right? Or no? Tell us about what you do.
I don't get as much hands-on as everyone else does. I do sit in the office a lot more, but I do split my time up between shelving, so I get to see the new materials that are coming in from the library or public donation. And I also work at the register, so I get to interact with the public. And in doing that, I'm telling them about the upcoming programs that we're having and then also what's available at APL in general.
That's cool. Can you, for those of people that don't really know what Recycled Reads is, can you talk a little bit about what Recycled Reads does and how it works?
We take all of the weeded materials from the branches and we resell them to the public.
That's
right.
pretty awesome. And that keeps
Weeded
that
materials-
stuff out of the landfill.
Yeah, just for people who don't speak the library language. Weeded materials
Weeded materials, it's anything. It's a music CD, a book on CD, a graphic novel, which we have several.
that's no longer in good enough shape to circulate at the branches, but still.
Or maybe they
You
have
know,
too many copies and it's not a best.
It's amazing
new
the
anymore.
things that come from the library. You think it's going to be something that is just in complete disrepair. No. These are items that people still want and still
Absolutely.
come and buy from us.
Yeah, the biggest golden gem, I think, is that you guys have a vinyl collection that a lot of people don't know about.
True.
It's
until
getting
now.
more and more popular. And yes, because of this radio show,
Yeah.
everybody will be lining up.
Or for the graphic novels. Yeah.
So what's one other thing that about Recycled Reads that most people don't know that you would like for people to know?
We are zero waste.
That's pretty important.
Yeah.
We partner with Austin Resource Recovery for fix-it clinics. We keep track of how many pounds of waste. Instead of sending it to the landfill, we're keeping track of what would have went to the landfill.
Right.
So
And tons of workshops and concerts.
we do have music almost every weekend.
All
yeah.
right.
Well, there's so much more we could talk about, but we're just out of time. It's been really great to have you on. And again, this is Mary Pulowski, who works at Recycled Reads. And we also had a conversation earlier with Betsy Blanche. And
That's about it for the day. I just want to thank our production volunteers, of course, and Federico Pacheco, and of course, DJ Harris for running the helm. Next week on the show, Library Facility Program Coordination Heidi Tsai will talk about her life and her job at the library. We'll also have Chilean guitarist Ricardo Perro stop by the studio to play a song, which is going to be awesome. He's going to be in town. He's from South America, and he's going to be here for a couple shows.
Yeah, he's living in Mexico, but he's originally from Chile, and he's coming all the way here just to play a show at the library. And we're just lucky we get to have him here in the studio to do a little live. And we're going to also...
We don't have to go too far into it. It was no easy task getting him here, so he really wanted to be here.
And stay tuned right after this on Co-op Radio for Rock and Roll Pest Control. Thanks for listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Special thanks to our producer, DJ Harris, and to the musicians who composed and performed our original theme song, Andrew Noble on violin, Kirk Duvall on guitar, and Mike Wheat on percussion. And thanks to you, our listeners. Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, airs Wednesday afternoons at 2:30 on Co-op 91.7 FM and koop.org. If you catch us mid-show, full episodes and other details can be found at library.austintexas.gov/volumes.